Hello everyone. If you want to improve your English, you're in the right place. On this channel you can improve your English by listening to stories. Throughout history, many great leaders lived. One of them was known by almost everyone, Napoleon Bonaparte. He was born on a small island. He came from an ordinary family. One day, all of Europe would know his name. So who was this man? How did he become so powerful? Why did he eventually lose everything? Let's discover this story together. A small island in the middle of the Mediterranean, Corsica. This island had been changing hands for years. First it was under the control of Genoa, then France bought it. For the people living on the island, this change didn't mean much. Life was hard, the land was tough, people were just trying to survive. In 1769, a child was born on this island. His name was Napoleon. His family had Italian roots. Their surname was actually Bonaparte. They were not French. They didn't speak French. They were living on French soil. His father Carlo was a smart man. He worked in law. He worked hard for his family's future. His mother Letizia was a strong woman. She gave birth to 8 children. She ran her home with strict discipline. Napoleon was very close to his mother. Years later, even when he became emperor, his eyes would fill with tears when he talked about her. Napoleon was the second of 8 children in the family. There was his older brother, Giuseppe. Then the others followed. A crowded family. Money was never enough. His childhood was not easy. Being Corsican in France was hard. His friends excluded him. This loneliness made him turn inward. He turned to books. He loved reading. History books, war stories, the lives of great commanders. When Napoleon was 9 years old, his father made an important decision. He would send his son to France for education, to the military school in Brienne. The military school was supported by the state. Poor families could send their children here. His father thought that after Napoleon received education here, he would have a good life. In 1779, Napoleon came to Brienne. He was 10 years old. It was a foreign country and a foreign language. Everything was very difficult for him. He loved mathematics, numbers, calculations, geometry. These were easy for him. He loved geography. He loved history. He especially read military history. He read about Hannibal, Caesar, Alexander. He would spend hours learning about their lives and battle tactics. He stayed in Brienne for 5 years. Then he was accepted to the prestigious École Militaire in Paris. This was a great achievement. His father could not see this success. Carlo Bonaparte died in 1785. Napoleon was only 15 years old. Napoleon completed his education in Paris in 1 year. He graduated in 1785. He had become an officer in the French army. The French army had accepted him. The long adventure was beginning. The storm of revolution. In 1789, everything in France was turned upside down. The people had been hungry for decades. The king was living in luxury in his palace. The nobles led privileged lives. The poor always paid the taxes. Bread could not be found. There was hunger in the streets. As a result of all this, the French Revolution began. The king was removed from the throne. France was in chaos. Napoleon was serving in the army during this period. He was not well known. He was carefully observing what was happening. The revolution had excited him. Equality, freedom, brotherhood. These ideas sounded good. A civil war had also broken out. There were those who opposed the revolution, those who supported the monarchy. France was being torn apart from within. There was also a threat from outside: Austria, Prussia, England. These countries were afraid that the revolution would spread to their own lands. They became allies against France. In 1793, the city of Toulon reached a critical point. Toulon was an important port city. The English and Spanish had captured it. The French government wanted to take it back. The officers didn't know what to do. Napoleon was there at the time. He was only 23 years old. He assessed the situation. He examined the maps. He made a plan. If he placed the cannons in the right place, they could capture the city. He explained this to his superiors. At first, they didn't take him seriously. Eventually, they allowed him to try. Napoleon placed the cannons on the hills. He opened fire. Control of the harbor was seized. The English ships were forced to flee. The city of Toulon was retaken. This victory changed everything. People began to hear Napoleon's name. His superiors appreciated him. Word went to Paris. This young officer is worth noticing. A few months later, a promotion came. He became a brigadier general. He was only 24 years old. How many people in France had become a general at that age? Very few. Napoleon was special. In 1796, Napoleon received a new assignment. France's army in Italy was in a terrible state. The soldiers were tired and hopeless. Resources were insufficient. Leading this army to success seemed almost impossible. Napoleon accepted the assignment. When he arrived in Italy, the soldiers saw him. He was a short, young man. He wasn't even 30 years old. The soldiers looked at him with suspicion. "Is this our commander?" Napoleon began to speak. His voice was strong, his words were clear. The soldiers listened to him. They were fighting against Austria. Austria was powerful. Napoleon was fast. He attacked before the enemy could prepare. Napoleon didn't like to wait. The army he commanded won victory after victory. Each time the Austrians were surprised. By the end of the year, most of Italy had come under French control. Austria was forced to ask for peace. When Napoleon returned to Paris, people welcomed him. He was 27 years old and had become his country's hero. In 1798, Napoleon had a big idea in mind. England was France's greatest enemy. Its naval power was very strong. A direct attack was difficult. Other ways needed to be tried. If you could cut England's connection with India, you could weaken its economy. This connection passed through Egypt. Napoleon's plan was simple: take Egypt, cut England off from the east. The French government approved. A large fleet was prepared. 35,000 soldiers. Scientists, engineers, and artists also boarded the ships. They crossed the Mediterranean. The English didn't know the French army was coming. They landed in Alexandria. Egypt at that time was connected to the Ottomans, but the real power was held by the Mamluks. The Mamluks had skilled cavalry warriors. One day the Mamluk cavalry forces advanced. The horsemen were charging fast. Napoleon was prepared. He arranged his soldiers in a square formation. Fire could be opened from every direction. The Mamluks fell into this trap. Hundreds lost their lives. The French won. Cairo became French. Napoleon respected Egyptian culture. He tried not to harm the Egyptian people. Scientists began working. Days passed. Things began to go wrong. The English directed their navy to Egypt. The French were defeated twice. England at sea, the Ottomans on land managed to defeat them. And then a plague epidemic began. Soldiers were falling ill. Napoleon returned to France. He highlighted the good things he had done in Egypt. He pushed the defeats he had experienced to the background. In France, people thought he had won. In 1799, France was in a difficult situation. People were looking for a leader. Napoleon had returned from Egypt, and the public welcomed him in Paris. He was a very famous commander. Some politicians noticed his popularity. A man named Sieyès wanted to establish a strong government. He worked together with Napoleon. A plan was made and a date was set. Napoleon entered the assembly, but the members of parliament reacted against him. He panicked and couldn't speak. At that moment, his brother Lucien stepped in, called soldiers into the hall, and the members of parliament dispersed. Thus a government of 3 leaders was formed. The most powerful was Napoleon. France was now under his control. Napoleon was 30 years old. As soon as he took power, he began to work. He first dealt with the economy. He established the Bank of France. Napoleon formed a team and worked for years. Finally, the Napoleonic Code emerged. With these laws, everyone was equal and secular. These laws influenced France and many countries of Europe. Their effects even reached the present day. He reformed education. Schools opened. He wanted everyone to be able to read. He also made peace with the church. Religion had taken a great blow during the revolutionary years. He reached an agreement with the Pope. Churches reopened. Within a few years, France was in a much better state compared to the old days. Stronger, more organized, wealthier. People loved Napoleon. They cast their votes in favor of Napoleon. One day, Napoleon would become king. The ceremony began. The Pope stepped forward, took the crown, and was about to place it on Napoleon's head. At that very moment, Napoleon did not bow forward. He took the crown himself. He placed it on his own head. The hall froze. The message was clear. I owe this power to no one. In 1805, Europe united against Napoleon. They thought his power needed to be stopped. England, Austria, Russia. Napoleon moved. First Austria was defeated. Vienna fell. Then he faced Russia. Napoleon deliberately appeared weak, leaving his right flank open. The enemy piled in there. The center had been emptied. Napoleon struck that gap, split the army in 2, and surrounded them. Within a few hours, the battle was over. He was now the master of Europe. Everything looked perfect. England was unbeatable at sea. The French navy was destroyed. Napoleon lost the sea. He attacked Spain and took it. He made his brother king there. The Spanish people did not accept this. Uprisings began. The people resisted. The next target was Russia. In 1812, Napoleon made the biggest decision of his life. He could not reach an economic agreement with Russia. It was time to fight. 600,000 soldiers set out. This was the world's largest army. In June, they began advancing through Russian territory. The Russians were not fighting. They were only retreating. They burned everything they left behind. The French army was advancing, but was growing weaker with every step. Finally, they entered Moscow. The city was completely empty. The Russians had set their own city on fire. Napoleon thought he had won the war. He wrote letters asking for peace. Months passed, but no answer came from anyone. And winter began. The decision to retreat was made. The cold grew harsher with each passing day. The Russians were attacking their weakened enemy. The French army completely fell apart. This was a disaster. The news spread across Europe. Countries that had feared Napoleon for years began to think differently. Every country started building its own army and attacking France. In March 1814, Paris fell. Paris, France's most beautiful city, was now in the hands of the enemy. I would also recommend watching our video where we told the story of Paris. Napoleon was far from the city. The generals were exhausted. Napoleon was forced to step down. He was sent to a small island. In February 1815 he returned. He formed an army. More battles were fought, but he lost them all. He surrendered to the English. He thought they might treat him well. They didn't. He was sent to St. Helena, a remote island in the South Atlantic. Escape from there was impossible. In 1815 he arrived on the island. He was approaching 46 years old. He would have to spend the rest of his life here. The island was small and desolate. The fog never cleared, the wind never stopped. The man who was once the master of Europe was now living on this dark island. He had a few loyal men with him. He talked with them, told them stories. He told them a great deal. He had his secretary write down his life, his campaigns, his victories, his decisions. He wanted everything he had lived through to be recorded. He had come to understand that attacking Russia had been a mistake. His health was gradually deteriorating. In the spring of 1821, he could no longer get out of bed. He passed away at the age of 51. He was laid to rest on St. Helena. A simple ceremony was held. The great emperor had gone like this. In 1840, his remains were brought to Paris in a grand ceremony. He still lies there today, visited by millions of people every year. What he left behind still lives on. Modern law, central banks, high school education, the metric system, all of it remains from him. From one perspective, he was a dictator who caused the deaths of millions of people. From another, one of the greatest reformers in history. He was born on a small island. He died on a small island. Everything that happened between these two moments has passed into history. We finish the video here. Napoleon Bonaparte's story teaches us a great deal. The highest peaks can be the signs of the deepest falls. He came from an ordinary island, shook the world. In the end he lost everything, but he left behind a solid legacy. 200 years later, we are still talking about him. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.